I scaring you?
Nope.
Okay, hold on. Ooh, how about now?
Still no.
Fuck. You know, I actually wasn't planning on doing Q&As because I didn't think we would get any, but we actually have a couple.
Well, alrighty then.
Some of them aren't Halloween related. We could actually save those for a future episode. But this one asks, what's your favorite candy and least favorite candy as a kid for trick-or-treating?
Man, I always got excited whenever I got like the Wonka candies, like sweet tarts or especially bottle caps. Man, bottle caps are where it's at, and either those or like Nerds. But yeah, usually the Wonka candies. I love those.
Okay, what was the one that you hated seeing?
It's like on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember what the hell they're called. You go and I'll see if the name comes back to my head.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember exactly what they were called.
The one that I was super pumped to get, let's see. That's actually kind of a hard one. I guess like the Snickers bars. I think that's probably my favorite one to get. But the one that I hated getting, that's an easy answer. I hated candy corn.
Oh man, candy corn's good. What's wrong with you?
What?
Yeah, it's candy corn. It's good. What is wrong with you?
Candy corn and bottle caps. You're a strange kid.
What? Who doesn't like bottle caps? They taste like soda.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. There's one that totally tastes like straight up root beer.
They taste like chalk and sadness.
What? Dude, I don't even know if we can do this. I don't even know if we can do this episode. You've insulted the holiness that is bottle caps.
The holiness that is bottle caps. Such a shit candy. What was your least favorite? Did you think of it?
No, actually, and it's bugging me because it was on the tip of my tongue, and now it's just gone.
Didn't you tell me once that you hated Christmas, or circus peanuts?
Oh yeah, I hated those fucking things.
Oh my, dude, those are good!
It's like a shitty dry marshmallow.
So, still, I don't know. I like them.
It's like what happens when you leave the bag of marshmallows open.
They are like that. Stale marshmallows, that's a circus peanut.
Yeah, I know. If I wanted that, I could just have a marshmallow and it would be way better.
Jesus. Yeah, coming from the guy that says candy corn is awesome.
Awesome might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it is pretty good.
It is gross. You know they have candy corn M&Ms? My son...
I have not seen that.
Yeah, my son got some. He hasn't eaten them yet, but I can't think of a less desired flavor for M&Ms than fucking candy corn.
Yeah, M&Ms, those caramel M&Ms that they put out, that's where it's at.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
Yeah, those are, if they had those in little carry out packets when I was a kid and I got those for Halloween, I'd have been pretty damn happy.
I guess. Anyway, so this is the Halloween special, and today we're going to talk about ghost stories. We're going to try to convince this bandwagon skeptic.
Bandwagon skeptic? I'm a lifelong skeptic, sir.
Okay. That ghosts are real. But first, I actually was kind of interested to hear the history of Halloween. Like, just like many holidays in America, the holidays aren't what they were intended for. And Halloween is definitely one of those holidays that's just a combination of so many different cultures, beliefs and traditions. So, John's going to explain to us the history of Halloween.
Well, the big one as far as, I'll kind of stick to the States because different countries kind of have their own thing, but the big origin of the Halloween that we celebrate here in the U.S. Starts with the Festival of Samhain, which is, it was a Celtic harvest festival. And they thought that as fall became winter, that was the time when the boundary between, the realm of the living and the dead was the narrowest. And they thought that, the dead could cross over. on that night. So they would light bonfires and wear costumes to try to ward off spirits.
Is that where candy comes from too? I think I heard that on Supernatural.
There was a little bit of that. They would have feasts, but also the candy thing was very popular in Ireland and England in later times, where people would put out what's called. They had the tradition of leaving out food for the dead, and they thought the spirits as they roamed were hungry.
Okay.
And they would leave out, food for their loved ones and stuff. And of course the food usually ended up being eaten by the poor and the homeless who had nothing else to eat.
Right.
But as way later down the line, whenever Catholicism and the Christian church was more popular in those areas, they tried to replace that tradition with giving the poor what they called soul cakes and little treats whenever they would knock on their doors, and basically feeding the poor and the children from their doorsteps rather than leaving food out for the dead.
What is a soul cake?
I saw that and I didn't really see an explanation of exactly what it is. I'm guessing it's just a cake and they called it a soul cake.
Clever.
That's what I'm guessing, because I actually, when I saw that, I tried to Google exactly what the hell a soul cake was, but as far as I could come up with, it was just a cake.
Okay. Well, I mean, anyone can do this themselves if they're interested, but just real quick. According to Wikipedia, a soul cake is a small round cake which is traditionally made for All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day to commemorate the dead in the Christian tradition. Huh.
Yeah, I got that part. I just didn't get what specifically made it a soul cake, rather than just a cake. And I came up with the idea that it's a soul cake the same way that a birthday cake is just a birthday cake. It's a cake that you ate on your birthday. So if you eat a cake on Halloween, now it's a soul cake.
See, these cakes are usually filled with allspice, nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, and other sweet spices, raisins, or currants. Before baking, were topped with the mark of a cross to signify that these were alms. All right. I don't know who I'm judging. We celebrate Christmas of a giant fat man in a red suit coming down a chimney.
Yeah, but no one believes that's real. Sorry, kids.
We might have an age restriction on these episodes, so I wouldn't worry too much. All right, well, that's actually.
I can go just one notch further on how it got to the States.
Okay.
Halloween. So basically, how it became Halloween instead of Samhain was Catholicism had a day that they on November 1st that they called All Saints Day, which was to revere all the saints.
Right.
When Catholicism spread up near into Celtic areas and all that, they actually made a day to honor all the dead on November 2nd that they kind of hoped would replace Samhain, and it slowly did. The first of November was already referred to as All Hallows, and the 31st was slowly became referred to as Hallows Eve, and that of course that slowly became Halloween. It moved to the States with pilgrims and settlers to the United States, and blended with some traditions that the Native Americans already had to honor their dead, like feasts and things.
So now we just dress up as ninjas and Disney princesses and go begging for candy.
Well, I mean, if you look, the roots of that are all there. People going around asking, for the soul cakes, people leaving food for the dead, except now it's just people dressed up like the dead. And all the way back to the Samhain, people were, lighting bonfires and wearing costumes to ward off the spirits. So, I mean, it's basically, the roots of it are all there. It's slowly through the 20th century in the United States was kind of made into a holiday for children. It also got popularized a lot with the Irish immigration, because the holiday was bigger over there due to the Celtic roots. Mm-hmm. And whenever massive amounts of Irish people immigrated for the potato famine, they brought a lot of those traditions over with them. And now it's the lovable children's holiday you know today.
So, do you remember your first costume? Or not your first costume, but what's the first costume you remember?
Red Power Ranger.
Red Power Ranger. I think I was Red Power Ranger once. But the first one that I remember, I went as Batman, but it wasn't like obviously it wasn't the costumes you see today. I think the mask was just like a black face mask. It wasn't like a full cover thing. But did you have any like repeat costumes, like something you wore multiple years?
No, I was actually never the same thing twice. I can't remember all the different ones, but the closest I had to a repeat was I did White Power Ranger, like the very same year, like the year right after Red Power Ranger.
I think I was Batman like 3 times.
And then after the Power Rangers was Darth Vader. So
I was never Darth Vader. I don't know why.
Went to the dark side quickly.
Started young.
Who wouldn't want to be Darth Vader? Man, if I was a kid now, I would have been like Kylo Ren probably like the last 2 Halloweens.
Yeah.
If I was a kid now.
All right. So the thing that we've been sort of plugging through the last few weeks is ghost stories. I was really excited to talk about ghost stories this episode and convince this fucker that they are real.
I mean, I know they're real. I've seen them in concert 3 times.
Not that Ghost. He's talking about, what is it, Ghost BC? Is that it?
Oh no, you gotta drop the BC.
Oh, sorry.
BC,
sorry.
That was a record label thing, a copyright thing.
Sorry,
so we're
Ghost
not talking
fans.
about that Ghost? Well, fuck, I gotta throw out all my notes.
Oh, God. You're an asshole. Well, we got a couple submissions, and there's a few stories that I've experienced and a few stories that some family members experienced as well. And all of these stories that I'm about to say, they're short stories. They all take place in this one house. And this house was in Claremont, North Carolina. It's a town outside of Hickory. And this house was my dad's grandmother's, I believe. I think that's right. She lived there with her husband for years, obviously, and they actually both died in that house. Now, first, my personal experience with the house. Granted, I don't have a lot of experiences, and, I mean, you could probably take my stories with a grain of salt because I was so young. But I do distinctly remember just different small things. Like, I remember my mom and dad and I being in the living room and hearing voices towards the back of the house. And I distinctly remember this. This is one memory that I'm very confident in. And I remember hearing it, and I remember my dad, like, muting the TV because they heard it too. So it was something, and it sounded like a male voice. But anyway, there was also, like, the TV would turn on and on by itself, and it would change channels by itself, which that's probably not a valid one either because it's electronic and things can glitch out, especially with TVs back then. But let's see. My dad didn't. I mean, he told me that there was weird things, but I can't remember if he ever told me an actual story. But my mom has a story. She actually submitted it on our Facebook page here. She actually has several, but I'm only going to pick a couple of them, or I'll just briefly summarize them. Let's see. She has one here where it was her and I in the house. I was a baby, and she said that I was sick, so she brought the bassinet I was sleeping in close to her bed. And there was no one else in the house. I guess Dad was off working, and they didn't have any animals. And she felt, you know that feeling you get when someone sits down on a bed and, like, gently lays down, like, kind of slowly and gently? She said that that's what she felt, and she had her back to where that was happening, and she was too afraid to look to see what it was. But other than that, she talked about, hearing things just like the voices, hearing cabinets open and close, dishes fall to the ground and nothing be in there, nothing be on the ground when she went to check. And there was one here. This is one that I actually really wanted to say. She said that she saw someone in the back hallway. There's a hallway towards the back of the house, reaching into an opened cabinet. She told my grandmother, she told my great-grandmother, my dad's grandmother, about this. And she asked her to describe him. And without ever meeting this man before and without ever seeing a picture of him, she described, according to my great-grandmother, she described her husband to the T. As far as build, as far as what he was wearing. Apparently he wore those wife-beater tank tops all the time and pajama pants when he was home. And that's what she said that he was wearing. It's sort of like a reoccurring thing of dishes falling to the floor, and when you go check, there's nothing in the floor. Cabinets in the kitchen opening and closing, footsteps, and the voices for sure. And I remember as a little kid, that hallway, the same hallway that I was just talking about, I was so terrified of that hallway. And not for any particular reason. I don't know if it's kid intuition or something like that, but I was terrified of that hallway, and specifically this closet that was in there. I did not want to go near it. I didn't even want to look at it. So I hope I didn't forget anything. I feel like I did, but that's sort of the beginning of my belief of ghosts, and especially the fact that, I mean, my mom's story alone of describing my great-grandfather without ever meeting him, that's pretty interesting to me.
I mean, that is interesting. I do think there has to be some rational explanation somewhere there. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be some rational explanation other than the dead are walking around.
Well, that's the thing, is like, what are ghosts? I mean, that's the big story. I mean, that's why we kind of can't prove it. Because they say, well, we need video evidence. Well, we have videos. Videos can be doctored. We have pictures. Pictures can be doctored. So there's really no way to prove it. And there's also no way to prove it, philosophically, because we don't know what happens when we die. So it's just one of those things that we just don't know.
Yeah, it's, that's one of those things, like, I mean, if you're like me and you think there's no afterlife, so it kind of precludes ghosts right out the gate. But, I mean, I guess we don't know there's no kind of afterlife, but... there's this one thing. It's not really ghost related, but it's super interesting, especially after it was told to me. I found it interesting. My mom was pregnant. Was pregnant with me. And she wasn't very far along. She didn't even know what gender I was going to be. And one night, late at night, my great-grandmother called my mom and dad, and she asked to talk to Mom. And so she got on the phone with her, and she didn't tell me what exactly they talked about, but right before she got off the phone, she told my mom to take care of my grandson, me. And my mom said that it struck her as odd, because they didn't know if I was going to be a boy or girl yet, and it seemed out of place, especially, in the conversation. But she was like, okay, I will, and they got off the phone. They found out the next morning that she died. People do that, though. People kind of somehow, like, they don't necessarily know that they're dying, like, consciously. But
I wonder that, though.
If you look up stories of people, like, experiences before death, a lot of time there are quite a few stories of people doing, like, weird things, like maybe like the body knows and it's not, fully conscious in the mind, but you might get an urge to, call a loved one or something like that. And then you could just add in that, sometimes people just assume genders for kids.
That definitely could be. I mean, it was a 50-50 shot.
I was actually you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say it's, 50-50. So it could be that, or, it could be something else. But I do know that there's quite a few stories of people who are close to dying doing things like that, calling a loved one and having a conversation with them, and then they're gone, and it would be kind of out of character for them to do that normally. They don't do it a ton, but maybe they just got a feeling they couldn't place or something like that.
But where is that feeling coming from? Because I think that a lot of people, and I'm not talking about sudden deaths like a car accident or something tragic like that, but I think especially if you're sick or you're just, you're really old and your body's giving out, I think a part of them at least kind of suspects that their time is coming. And I can say this because my grandfather, this is like story time with my family history, I apologize. My grandfather, my mom's father, he was like this the best way to describe him was just a hard man. And I never saw him fear anything, and I never saw him cry at anything. He was that kind of a guy. But he had cancer, and he was on his deathbed. And my mom was visiting him, and she told me that he was staring off to the corner of the room with this look of pure terror. A look that she had never seen him make in her entire life. And she asked him, she said, "Daddy, are you scared?" And he just looked up at her with the same look and just nodded. And then started looking at the corner of the room again. What is he seeing? What is he thinking? What is he feeling?
Well, again, near death, there are some very strange experiences. My grandmother, on her deathbed from cancer, saw her dad standing at the foot of her bed, who was long dead.
Wow.
It could be something that the mind produces, based on what somebody thinks is coming for them at death. Mm-hmm. There's been people who near-death experiences have actually thought they went to either heaven or hell. There's a pretty popular-ish story on the internet that at least got told, to me pretty often back in the days whenever I was still a Christian, of a guy who basically he died or was dying in this situation. He had seen demons and stuff walking around his room, and he was pleading with doctors not to let him die.
Whoa.
There's been the other experiences of people who claim to have seen heaven, and now they're back, and what they describe usually ends up being pretty much in line with what they believe heaven looks like.
Right.
And we also know that the mind can get pretty slippery in old age and in senility, even if you're not factoring any potential diseases like Alzheimer's or things like that.
Dementia. Yeah.
You could you've had people that genuinely believe they're in another time, or that somebody is still alive and they're not, and they have to be reminded that that person is dead. And so there are potential rational explanations for these kinds of things. For example, if you're a person that thinks you're going to hell, your body, when it starts, panicking, your mind can produce these hallucinations. Or it could be real.
Perhaps the guilt or the fear of going to hell.
I would think fear, because if that was real and you thought you were going, that would be a horrifying thought.
Well, I can't remember if we ever brought this up, but it's steadily becoming a more popular topic of discussion of the brain producing DMT in high stress situations. I don't think they've 100% proven this yet, but it is widely believed that it comes from the brain during high stress, things like near-death experiences or dreams. Could that be what near-death experiences, like those visions, are? You're just tripping balls off DMT?
It could be that. And there's other things that factor into that. There's, your expectations. If you're laying on your deathbed and you've heard that people tend to see a loved one that they think that is passed on and they think is in heaven, or on the other side, wherever you think the other side is, you might, if you've got that expectation, as reality starts to get a little slippery for you, then it seems like it'd be pretty reasonable and easy for the brain to conjure something like that up.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead.
There's another near-death phenomenon, though, that tends to happen for other family members. After the person has passed, it's not uncommon for family members to see someone shortly after they're passed. Actually, after my grandmother passed, two different people in our family saw her, and one claims to have spoken with her.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them had just woke up, and I've had dreams where I thought I just woke up, so I'm gonna chalk that one up to sleepiness.
Okay.
And but the other one was just standing in her kitchen, wide awake, but she didn't speak to her; she just saw her.
Yeah.
And saw her, and then she was gone. And I personally, I mean, you could read into that what you want. I personally think it's a mind under duress conjuring what it needs to see. But
so your brain decides that you need to see your dead relative standing in front of you? Why? What's the benefit in that?
Well, when she saw her, she actually looked young and healthy, not, like she was, in a cancer deathbed.
Well, that'd be a pretty shitty afterlife if you went into it sick.
Yeah, well, so your brain conjures up this image of them young and healthy, and she was smiling. Mm-hmm. Conjures up the image of her young, healthy, and smiling, instead of the last image that you're left with, thinking like, okay, yeah, this sucks, but they are okay now.
I mean, it definitely could be, but I don't know. It is easy to, just as it's easy to say they're not real, it is easy to say that they are real, because in all honesty, we just don't know. We just go off our experiences. I mean, do you not have a personal experience?
I have two, actually. I think both of them are my own fucked up failed perceptions, but I'll tell them both. Okay, the first one was, again, shortly after my grandmother had passed, the same person that the other two saw.
Interesting how multiple people saw her.
But mine was a good bit after, like a couple weeks after. Both of them saw her on the same night.
Okay.
Apart from basically just a couple hours apart, actually.
Maybe she was just making the rounds.
But for me, it was...
It's totally ignoring what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well...
Go ahead.
But for me, it was weeks after, so... And there were some pretty short rounds, because as far as I know, there's only me and the other two people.
Okay.
But for this one, I was actually going to... I was laying down to go to sleep, but I was super bummed, still super bummed about her dying.
Mm-hmm.
Probably that's then to put it a little bit in perspective, that was when I was in the 6th grade, so I'm pretty young, and that was actually my first experience of a close family member passing away.
Right.
Someone who wasn't someone I saw only once a year, someone that I saw once, twice a week.
So you're already really close to her. You had a deep emotional attachment.
Yeah. And so as I'm going to sleep and I'm feeling really bummed out about it, I'm laying there, my eyes are closed and stuff. And I feel what to me feels like the back of someone's hand, slide down my cheek. I shot up in bed, went to the living room, played video games all night, did not go back to sleep.
Now skeptic. What caused that?
And, well, at the time, I had, kind of a longish, bowl-cut looking hair. Just, dumbass kid haircuts.
Down to your cheek?
Yeah, down to my cheek.
Okay.
And I was laying there trying to go to sleep. So I think I was kind of dozing, and I think as I turned my head, my hair went across my face, and I felt what made sense to my brain to feel while I was laying there thinking about somebody who recently passed away.
Well,
but it did spook me at the moment, though. It did spook me at the moment.
Well, I don't want to discredit your experience or your conclusion of it either, because it could very well have been you drifting off to sleep and your hair rubbing your face and you sort of dreaming it was your grandmother's hand. But I also have to say that a hand touching your cheek feels a lot different than hair touching your cheek. So how could you mistake those if you were awake enough to notice?
I don't know if I really was awake enough to notice. That's the thing. I was trying to go to sleep, and I mean, how many times have you slightly dozed only to have some minor stimulus make you like startle up in bed?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that I was, slipping into like the sleep state and not really perceiving stuff fully. I mean, it'd be cool to think it was the opposite. It'd be kind of cool to think that, my grandmother dropped by to, try to comfort me, long after she was gone. It'd be cool to think that, but it seems like a far less likely explanation than, that my sleepy brain fucked up its perceptions as it was falling asleep.
Okay, so that experience, it could have been your hair touching your face while you're drifting off to sleep. So what's your other experience?
Okay, so this one's harder to explain away.
Good.
But at the same time, I still don't believe it was actually a fucking ghost. But anyways, okay, so this one was after my great-grandmother had passed away.
Okay. Was this before or after?
Quite a bit after. Like it was the summer, it was either the summer between 6th and 7th or the summer between 7th and 8th, and it's been long enough that I can't remember for sure which.
Okay.
So I have to do a little bit of background here. There's basically some kind of shared owned lake property that my family has, and they go regularly during the summer.
Rich kid.
No, not me. So everybody would go there, and they had places to bring campers and stuff, but my great-grandmother had actually put like a small mobile home out there that most people in the family had keys to and stuff, just so you could like go in and take a shower. Well, it's well past midnight, and night there, even in the summer, is always kind of cold because it's high elevation, you're right on the shore of a lake, so it's always kind of cold.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thirsty, and I went in to get a drink from the refrigerator. Now, keep in mind, we've been sitting around a campfire telling fucking ghost stories for the last hour and a half. So my brain's on it, and I'm still basically a kid.
Right.
But I go in there, I go to the fridge, I'm being all indecisive with the fridge. I don't know, do I want soda? Do I want water? Do I want to steal a beer?
This is important plot points, everyone. Listen up.
Very important. And well, it goes to like where my brain is.
It'll all wrap up in the end.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
But then I get like this kind of fucked up feeling that I'm not alone.
Okay.
And I look over my shoulder. There's nobody in the house
that you can see.
That I can see, and there's also nobody in the house. But
that you can see, sir.
But at this point, I am a little spooked, and I bend down to grab my soda, and what I hear behind me is what sounds like
should have gone with the water. That's your mistake.
Right. It's what sounds like well, I was a 12-year-old fat kid, so okay. I didn't want water. Fuck water.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I hear what sounds like footsteps behind me, like slow, like kind of small footsteps.
Okay.
Kind of like I can't recall it well enough to say like exactly what kind of walk it sounded like, but it wasn't like a heavy walk.
Okay. And
at this point, like, hair on the back of my neck is standing up, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm feeling kind of like chilled.
Mm-hmm.
And I turn around, nothing there.
Of course.
And the house was dark because just as it so happened, the fucking kitchen light blew that day. So the house is dark. It blew like earlier in the morning.
Now, was that an old light bulb or was it the ghost?
Dude, everything in that trailer was old. So
ghosts. Okay, go.
But and then whenever I saw the house was empty, I was spooked enough. I bolted out of that motherfucker. Like, I got the hell out of there.
Okay, so in your two experiences, you have touch, the feeling, and your second one, you can hear something. Okay?
Yeah, and the second one, I believed it was real for a long time. But at the same time, my brain's already primed for it, and there are animals everywhere out there. That could have been a squirrel on the roof. That could have been anything. And like, why would some random thing just be footstepping up behind me, and then I turn around and there's nothing there?
Well, that's a very tricky situation because you had just been telling ghost stories, which even to this day, I'm almost 30 years old, and if I'm watching like scary videos on YouTube or something, I don't want the lights off when I'm walking through the house. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely factors there, but how do you explain, Mr. Skeptic Man, when all three of us, my mom, dad, and I, when I was little, not in that situation, we're just chilling out in the living room watching TV, and we all three hear the voices in the back of the room?
Well, I mean, I've had an experience where, both me and my dad thought that we heard someone talking, quickly turned off the TV, and then, another gust of wind comes and it's wind. Or it's some normal thing that just sounded like talking with the TV on.
Wind doesn't sound like someone speaking words.
Well, what were the words?
I was too little. In all honesty, I was too little. The only thing I can remember is that it happened. I would actually like to ask my mom and dad, and actually my stepmother, if they ever heard actual words.
Yeah, because the brain will kind of construct, like if it hears something that it doesn't know what it is, it'll basically construct the best representation it can.
But yeah, you can hear that in songs. Like, the song lyrics that everyone gets wrong type of thing.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Well, yeah,
people seriously thought Jimi Hendrix was talking about kissing dudes for a long time. Yeah.
The fact still remains in that example is that you may have mistaken what was said, but someone was still saying something. And in my personal experience, wind doesn't sound like someone speaking.
But if your brain doesn't pick up that it's actually wind, it can basically come up with something that sounds like garbled speech. And then whenever, you're listening closer, you're like, oh, wait, no, that's wind. Or that's something else.
Just a side thing. This doesn't really prove or disprove or anything like that about ghosts. But just to add to my personal experience with that house is I already said that I was terrified of that hallway and that closet. To this day, decades later, I have a reoccurring dream about that damn closet. And without getting too much detail about it, basically I walk into the closet. There's like this opening at the bottom of the wall that I somehow get inside. It's like just a tiny little opening. But I basically am inside the wall. And there's these stairs that go up. And I walk up the stairs and I guess to like the upper part of the house. I don't think it had an attic. If it did, I don't remember. And that's usually all I ever remember of the dream. It does progress further than that, but that's the only thing I remember. And the whole time, I'm absolutely terrified in a pretty unexplainable way type of terrified. Like, I'm terrified but curious. Anyway, so you've had experiences. You've heard of experiences, and it could definitely be people mistaken different things. But in your opinion, why is it such a reoccurring thing about ghosts? And it's not just me, you and me, and my parents, your parents. It's all over the world. People talk about spirits.
Well, I mean, to begin with, you've got, the question of people trying to answer the question of what happens after death. Some people thought that, people live on as spirits and that they're still around. There are many traditions where people live on like that. Some people thought that evil spirits or evil people couldn't be admitted into heaven and they roam the earth. Okay. And so you've got these myths and things that lead people to think that there's a reason that people's spirits would still be around. And, that comes from the idea that we actually have some sort of immortal part of us, some soul, something that can't die.
Well, what's the problem with having a soul? Not in the religious sense, and not just us as humans, But why not say, let's say consciousness, the fact that we're conscious, doesn't that live on in some way?
Probably not. I mean, because most of your consciousness, most of everything you define as consciousness is just a reaction of chemistry. I mean, when you're happy, when you're sad, it's just chemicals in your head. Whenever you hug somebody you love and you feel, super great, that's just oxytocin floating around in your brain.
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about moods, though.
Well, where I'm going with that is that it's not like there's some life force of you that's, living on inside just a body. Everything you feel and experience can be explained chemically and physically. So there's kind of no need for a soul unless there's an afterlife. And there probably isn't.
But you also have to define what is an afterlife. It's not necessarily heaven, hell, purgatory, whatever. I mean, it could just be, it could be resurrection. It could be you going to, I don't know, another dimension. And that's actually kind of, I'm not saying that this is a likely reason why ghosts are real, but is the fact that, I don't want to go too scientific and I don't want to go too deep into the topic because it's a rabbit hole. But basically, scientists are pretty close to proven, at least proving that other dimensions exist. Not necessarily reaching it or contacting it, but proving that they exist. And what if we're living in one dimension and people who have died just go to a different dimension or whatever? Could that be the fact that they're sort of overlapping and you're seeing sort of like an obscured view into that dimension with them in it?
But why would they bleed over a little bit? I mean, that's getting into the same kind of thing that people think creates the Mandela effects.
I mean, you can't really say, why would it bleed over, because you and I don't understand other dimensions, so we can't really say why would it bleed over. It could be a total normal thing that it bleeds over.
And are we necessarily talking about other dimensions, or are we talking more about like multiverse type stuff?
I mean, either or, because I'm not a scientist and I don't understand either of them.
I mean, I'm not a scientist either. I'm, armchair readers of articles pretty much describes this, I do believe.
I do believe, he says.
Yes, that is my hypothesis.
I am a skeptic, I do believe.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny putting believe next to the word skeptic. It's pretty good. But I mean, is that, possible? Well, just about anything's possible, but I'm trying to go with what's probable.
You don't know because you don't have the information. No one knows.
I was going to say, nobody has the information.
Right, I'm not claiming that I know, but I'm saying I don't know and you don't know.
Basically, the big thing for me is for ghosts and all this stuff to be real, it requires some sort of belief in the paranormal and life after death.
Maybe. Okay.
Which I don't think we have any solid evidence for. Well, I mean, if people are seeing apparitions of people who are dead, then yeah, there's got to be some sort of life after death thing going on, unless you think there's some sort of like echo thing going.
Unless someone is experiencing a spirit or ghost, whatever it is, and assuming it's someone that they knew that had died. It could be someone totally different. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but you've got the cases of where you were looking at someone, like
that's true. Like my mom's thing, yeah.
Yeah, or the two members of my family that straight up saw my grandmother. But interestingly enough, neither one of them saw her looking the way she looked whenever she was sick and the way she was when she actually died. They saw her looking younger and stronger.
Like I said, I would hope so. I mean, if I go into the afterlife at the age that I die in, that would kind of suck.
Man, if there really was an afterlife and you go into it in the state that you died in, that would kind of make dying young a perk, wouldn't it?
Maybe.
I mean, like if you're stepping into immortality.
I mean, yeah, I can't die, but I'm sick, I have cancer, my back hurts. That sucks. That might be hell.
Maybe. You've got... So yeah, I understand that there are like some possible rational explanations for this stuff, but at the same time, they usually require some degree of major assumptions.
Well, here's this. You ever walk into a room where someone had already, two people had been arguing, and you feel that tension in the room? Even though you didn't hear them say anything or anything like that, you could just feel the tension?
Like the two people are still in the room?
They're in the room, or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure you've felt that tension before in any circumstance.
Yeah, you can do that, but part of the reason you're feeling that is your brain is picking up on their body language, on how they're acting, and your brain is a lot better at figuring out how other people are feeling and what they're doing.
Okay, but
than you think.
Okay, then here's this then. People going into a room that no one else is in. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. This is why I'm asking. That no one else is in, and you could feel a sort of a sadness, like someone was just in there upset about something. I'm trying to. Okay, well, I get what you're saying about the brain picking up on a lot of things, and that could very well be the case. But what I was getting at is, what if ghosts, in general, I'm not talking about this ghost versus that ghost, but in general, what if they're, I think the word that was described once, echoes of that energy, that emotional energy. That's why you find that a lot of haunted places were places where people were killed or beaten, or just some sort of general trauma, like asylums or houses where there were murders, things like that. Very high emotional energy. Why are they more likely to be haunted?
Well, I think part of that, again, is our perception. Like, we think that there should be someone with carrying sadness or someone carrying some vengeance living on in this place. But at the same time, I don't really know why we think that. I mean, I know that several Civil War battlegrounds are supposed to be some of the most haunted places in the United States of America.
Like Gettysburg or places like that?
I've heard Gettysburg, and I hate the names escaping me, but there's another one that's like pretty notorious for it. I think it's actually Antietam, which was the bloodiest battle of the Civil War.
Okay.
But there are several, farmhouses that are near these areas which are thought to be haunted. There's, places where they set up hospital tents that are believed to be haunted, and people claim to have seen, soldiers walking at night alone with, tattered clothing and things. And
okay, so basically you're saying that those places are, in quotes, haunted because people expect them to be?
Partially, but part of the popular, ghost myth is that, people believe that some ghosts are people who couldn't move on.
Okay, but what about...
And they're stuck for something.
Okay, well, I mean, what about the Amityville house, where they didn't know that something had happened in that house? They just started experiencing stuff, and then later found out that this tragedy happened within the house. What about those people?
All right. First, I'm going to look up and make sure that I know the official what was supposed to have happened in Amityville, because I've seen 2 movies, and I actually know someone who lived near there. So I want to see what the official.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you can definitely do that, but I mean, it's just an example. I mean, it's still people who experience paranormal things before even knowing about the house. That's what I was getting at, really.
Yeah, I mean, that could be anecdotal, but
anecdotal, but it's still a good example, especially what you're talking about. The people expect it to be haunted, therefore it is in their mind.
All right, yeah, okay. So it's the family that moved in afterward that claimed that there were a whole bunch of things. First, there was a real life murder there.
Okay.
There's Ronnie DeFeo went room to room methodically shooting his parents and his 4 brothers and sisters in their beds.
Damn.
23-year-old.
Was he mentally ill? Did they ever find out?
I don't see anything on that, but actually someone I know who lived, basically a few blocks from there said that the reality of it was that dude was on every drug ever. Like, dude was heavily into drugs, so he probably had fucked up his brain.
Okay, I mean, that kind of opens up another topic we, again, won't get into, but that's assuming that drugs are, in general, bad. It could be that he was mentally ill who happened to really like his drugs.
Well, if what I was told, which is that the guy was doing a lot of them and a lot of different ones, it means he was probably, you've got a combination of hallucinogens at the time. We're talking the 60s and 70s era. You're talking before the big cocaine thing, but you would be talking opioids.
So acid?
Yeah, you're talking a lot of psychedelics. Dude could be hallucinating some shit.
It's like weed, mushrooms, and acid. That's like the 60s and 70s drugs.
Yeah, but if you do way too much acid, reality can get a little slippery. Or so I'm told.
So, he has not done acid, ladies and gentlemen. He has not done acid. Don't judge him.
I've still never done it. I mean, someday, maybe, but...
I'd like to try it.
I don't want to try it if I knew it was safe. Like, I'd like maybe if I can take a field trip to Maps someday.
Yeah. I'm not talking about casually doing it in whatever situation I'm in. I would love to. I think I would feel better if I was like medically monitored while I'm doing this.
Yeah, I don't want to take it from a guy who hands me a sticker that looks like a Rick and Morty character.
And you're asked, "What's this?" I don't know. Take it, find out.
Exactly. Yeah, don't want to do that. Hey, why does this have a sticker? Why does this look like a sticker of SpongeBob SquarePants face melting? No, fuck that. I don't want that.
Because that's what you'll see, man.
Oh, have you seen that, man? There was a guy who shared like some pictures of a trip he was about to take online, which I think who's sharing pictures of drugs online before they do them? But people are weird. And I saw this picture.
People are dumb, okay? People are dumb.
And one was a picture of Morty from Rick and Morty, and the other one was a picture of like that Pickle Rick thing. I've never seen a single episode of Rick and Morty, but the internet doesn't escape it if you haven't. But
I don't understand the fascination.
He's got like a Morty and a Pickle Rick, and he's about to eat them. I'm like, dude, this has cartoon characters on it. Are you sure you want to put that in your mouth? Like,
fuck it, you only live once. Whoa!
Yeah, you only die once too, fucker. But anyways, getting off topic here. The family that moved in afterward claimed that there were a lot of strange experiences in the night, like poltergeist type stuff, bed slamming up and down the floor, green slime. But of course, there's not pictures or video or anything to document any of this.
Shame.
And researchers have claimed that there is an overwhelming feeling of horrible depression in the house. But, of course, these are people who know what happened in the house.
Well, I didn't have a paranormal experience with this, but I do have had experiences where I've walked into a room by myself and felt really sad for no reason. Like, I just, all of a sudden, I just felt like a family member just died. And just to find out later that someone was crying in that room. So, that's what I was getting at, is that emotions, especially strong emotions, I think they stick to things. And if you're able to perceive them, then who knows?
They do claim that there are people who are a good deal more empathetic than others, and I could just be one of those people that, I've, got all the empathy of a fucking rock. But
well, throughout my entire, I won't go too far into this because it's kind of personal for me, and I don't really feel comfortable putting it out on the internet. But I've been very empathetic throughout my entire life, like since very early childhood to today. But yeah, it could be that.
If I'm really close to somebody, I can usually pick up on what they're feeling pretty quick. But at the same time, a lot of that is usually my brain reading body language. Even if I'm speaking to them, on the phone or something, I can hear intonation in their voice.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that, being empathetic, especially very sensitive to people's emotions is some supernatural ability. It's just a higher awareness of it, I guess.
Yeah, but I was going to say, it doesn't really happen with people I don't know very well or like have some sort of connection for me. And it definitely doesn't happen where like I could walk in a room after they're gone and feel it. That definitely has never happened to me. That might be an experience that's very unique to your own life.
Maybe.
You have to look that up and see if other people have had that experience, actually.
Believe me, I've looked into it quite a bit. There's a lot of crazy shit, but it's still interesting. Again, maybe one day I'll open up about it. But you were talking about poltergeists. Now, what decides? Let's assume that ghosts are real. Okay, someone has, I don't know, a video or something. Like they live stream an actual ghost. Let's say that they're real. What determines what type of ghost you are? Because what are the different types of ghosts?
There's a whole fuck ton of them. Like,
I know you have like the ones that are like stuck in time loops or something where they experience something in their life over and over again, all the way up to like what you were talking about, like poltergeists who can apparently affect the physical world.
Well, the tragic events ones are the ones you're thinking of, or the ones we were talking about before that big tangent. That's where you see someone who seems to be reliving some awful point of their life that left an imprint. That would be like the Civil War ghosts, or people have seen, people in graveyards have claimed to see like ghostly apparitions of someone like knelt down in front of a tombstone crying, and then when they go over there's nobody there.
So that would be like the time loop you said?
Yeah, like the time loop, like the ghost of someone mourning their, dead loved one, or, reliving some awful tragedy.
Okay.
Which, that could be, I guess, explained, if it's real, through the whole echo thing. Like maybe that powerful experience, like kind of like left an echo.
Okay.
Which I'm just going to suspend disbelief for the sake of not making this take longer.
Okay.
Because I was about to get into, like, how would it leave an echo? Leave an echo in fucking what? But
fuck that. We're just speculating. This is the Theory of Anything podcast. We just bullshit.
I was about to say theory of bullshit.
Theory? Oh. I don't think you can market that name. Otherwise, that would be a fantastic name.
Well, so far we've been posting our clips to YouTube, and that probably instantly makes us not suitable for all advertisers.
Well, yeah.
So they couldn't reach all 7 listeners we have.
We said the S word. We can't give them money.
Anyways,
go ahead.
So poltergeists are supposed to be like not particularly like violent, like they'll kill a person living in the home, but it's like, the classic dishes flying out of cabinets, rooms left disturbed. It's actually a German word that literally means noisy ghost.
Makes sense.
Yeah. They turn appliances off and on, fuck with your TV and shit. The evidence, it says they're never seen. That's one of the common things about poltergeists, is that you never see them. They usually don't have any visual manifestation at all.
Okay.
And they think that they're the manifestation of trauma. Like being like a living person, like a child or a teen, and is unaware they're causing it.
I had heard that poltergeists are demons.
There's that thought too, but now you gotta accept demons, which what even are demons? Like the myths don't even agree. Some say they're just evil spirits that have been around forever. Some claim they're, the third of the angels that fell from heaven with Lucifer. Well,
not going into the lore again. We're trying so hard to dodge these tangents, but in a nutshell, my personal belief as far as what angels and demons are is basically just the good and evil in every single person.
I was gonna say, but dude, you watch Supernatural, you have to start with the lore.
Oh shit, I love that show, but believe me, if that stuff was real, I would definitely want to be a hunter. But I don't know.
Dude, no, hang on. If that shit was real, who would want to be a hunter? They all end up dead.
They're not dead. Sam and Dean aren't dead.
Yeah, because that show, to keep it running, has ex machina'd them out of every single death situation they've ever been in.
That show is full of ex machinas.
Yeah, I mean, Castiel ex machina is pretty much a theme of the entire series.
Yeah, he's basically just a walking ex machina. I mean, like, I'm only on season 7, and I think they're coming out with 13 now.
I'm caught up current. I'm on the current episode of 13.
Okay, so it is 13, but it's at the point that I'm at, almost no one dies. And if they have died, they've come back to life.
I seriously think that when they put Cass in that show, they were just like, okay, we're going to keep putting these guys in increasingly ridiculous situations for them to come out of unscathed or not dead. So they're going to frequently get fucked up. We need to have an angel around them who can heal them at all times, or else we're not going to be able to explain this shit anymore. I just
got done with God Castiel. That was interesting.
That was actually kind of awesome. But
yeah, I mean, you have to up the stakes. That's why they've been around for 13 years.
Yeah, so, I mean, but other than them, how many hunters have you seen on that show die? Horribly.
Well,
yeah, pretty much everyone who isn't Sam or Dean.
I like the idea of it, and don't smash my childhood dreams. Not childhood, but don't bash my childlike dreams.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just saying, again, huge tangent, but I do not think Hunter would be a great job. It doesn't even seem to pay well.
It pays it pays as long as you can keep stealing credit cards, according to that show. Which makes it seem like stealing credit cards is like the easiest thing in the world. They barely even bring it up anymore.
Yeah, it's just a common thing now.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Whoa. We see,
and they're technically not stolen. They're fake. Like, they belong to people who don't even exist.
Whatever. See, I said we're trying to avoid tangents, and we just went down one. Damn it, John.
Dude, we can't avoid tangents. I mean, I don't know what your problem is, but I'm an ADD kid, so I don't even, it's not even possible.
Well, the Theory of Tangents podcast.
Theory of bullshit.
So what are okay, fine. Let's try to get back on track. So those are what you are saying are poltergeists. But what about the type of spirits or phenomenon, whatever, of hearing, like I was talking about at that house in Claremont, hearing like cabinets opening and closing and dishes falling to the ground, but nothing's actually happened. It's just that it's like auditory hallucinations almost.
I think that would be kind of like the echo thing, like, except it's an auditory echo instead of a like a physical echo.
Gotcha.
That's what I think as far as that, because I've not seen anything that would define that as a particular type of spirit itself, but just one type of paranormal phenomena.
So basically we can just say that there's 2 types of ghosts. Is that what you're saying?
A whole bunch of different ones, apparently. There's the boogeyman, which is a malevolent spirit attracted to children. They say he often hides under the bed or in dark closets.
Okay. I didn't realize it was actual, like, lore behind him. So he's a spirit?
Yeah, they're
spirit of who?
There's not just a boogeyman, there's many boogeymen. It's a boogeyman is this a particular type of spirit. And many different cultures throughout the world have some variant on him, and they tend to frighten young children. Some also tend to frighten disobedient or unruly children, aka this is some shit adults made up to scare their children into doing what they're supposed to do.
That's what it sounds like.
But but hey, they live in a closet, man. That's why you're scared of the closet.
The fucking closet. Anyway, okay, so the boogeyman.
You've got the one of the more famous spirits in lore, the incubus and succubus.
Which people often get reversed. People say the incubus is the woman.
No.
Yeah. It's succubus is the woman, incubus is the male.
I didn't know people often got that backwards.
I learned that on Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, you learned it on Ghost... Jesus, man. You didn't learn anything on Ghost Adventures.
I learned that. I didn't know there was something called succubus. I thought it was all incubus.
Really? I heard the succubus long before that. But
well, no one is as great as you, Jonathan.
I know, but you didn't have to say it. Now people are going to feel weird. But
fucking asshole.
But I mean, the incubus is the succubus, right?
Are those spirits?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a demon that seduces and has sex with humans in their sleep.
Okay, well, I
mean, this sounds like an explanation for cheating on your spouse. But
it was the succubus.
It totally wasn't me.
Is that where the fetish of having sex with ghosts comes from?
Oh God, that is a real thing too.
Yeah,
that's a real thing.
People love to get some ghost ass.
If I remember right, and I'm going to Google this here in a second, just to make sure I'm not getting it wrong, I think they're actually called ectophiles.
Man, there literally is a fetish for everything.
Oh man, there's probably a fetish for people who don't have fetishes.
That's probably me.
Yeah, supposedly everybody's got some kind of fetish. Supposedly.
I guess I'm just super unimaginative then, because I can't think of one.
But
I like blonde-haired women. Is that one? I wouldn't call it a fetish. It's just a preference.
Oh God.
Anyway.
It's called spectrophilia.
Of course.
It is a sexual attraction to ghosts or sexual arousal from images and mirrors, as well as the phenomenon of sexual encounters between ghosts and humans.
Now, this has happened so many times that they have a name for it.
Yeah, this is... it's actually related to the succubus and the incubus.
So, I got a question. I think this is a very important question that everyone is asking in their heads right now. Do they swallow the ectoplasm?
I think you'd have to. I mean, that's supposedly a whole lot of spiritual energy being put out there. Plus, you're just having sex with a ghost. If you offend them, they could haunt you forever.
Oh, I just grossed out myself.
Probably, and it probably looks like something from like Slimer from fucking Ghostbusters.
Oh God.
Yeah, there are people, by the way, who write entire stories. Oh, sorry, they're not writing stories. They are recounting their experiences
naturally
of having sex with ghosts. They're not writing stories. Sorry, that would be ridiculous.
This actually happened to me. It's more exciting if you think it's true.
Yeah, so there are people who genuinely believe that they have had sex with a ghost.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, meanwhile, the rest of us are debating whether they even exist. These people are fucking them. These people should be on the forefront of an entire scientific field here.
Oh, my God. Can you get pregnant from a ghost?
I mean...
That's one of the questions they need to answer. The world needs to know.
And if you abort your ghost pregnancy, since it's half dead, is it really an abortion?
Well, you're going straight to hell, because abortion is abortion.
Well.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So, you've had experiences that you can... I meant to ask you this when we were talking about our experiences. But here at the Theory of Tangents podcast, we have to do a lot of backtracking. So, you've explained away your experiences in a pretty rational way. What would be, besides the wind thing, what would be your explanations for, like, my parents' experiences?
I actually don't know, because I would have to actually have seen it through their eyes.
I mean, just guess. Imagine it.
I mean, I don't really have one. The closest would be if the description of... Because, okay, like you said, she saw like a man dressed as your great-grandfather would be dressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then recounted the story to your grandmother, right?
Yes.
Who then said that would be, I'm guessing, her father?
No. This was before I was born. It was, she told the story to my great-grandmother, and it was her husband.
Oh, I thought you said, her grandmother, not your grandmother.
Yeah, she is my dad's grandmother.
Okay. But I wonder if it could be like, because that doesn't seem like a very strange, image for the time. So it could be someone that she could have seen on TV, or someone that was dressed like that. And of course I'm reaching here because I don't have the experience myself. But it could be someone just dressed that way, and then when she described it, that sounds close enough to someone that your great-grandmother had known had passed, and says, well, that's him.
Right.
But without getting super, again, without having seen it myself, very hard for me to say.
And, I mean, this has come up a few times in the entirety of this podcast so far. The human memory is pretty shit. Even if it had just happened, if she was shown a picture, in her brain, it could have been, yeah, like that. When it probably wasn't, it was probably close to that, but it probably wasn't exactly that. So, who knows? I think that's the main point, is we can't have a yes or no answer for this. Because we just don't know.
Well, I mean, for me personally, whenever I try to remember, like, family members who are gone, or even, like, friends that I haven't seen in a really long time, their faces are kind of, like, fuzzy in my memory, for the most part. Save just a couple people, pretty much. Their faces actually are kind of hard to recall. Like, when I see a picture of my grandmother, I always kind of, like, have to revise how she looks in my memory, because I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot, yes, that's how she actually looked. She didn't have that feature, she had this feature. And it's amazing that, like, my brain, that's somebody that you love, and your brain can actually slowly forget the details just because it's no longer being exposed to them over time.
Yeah, but I think that kind of opens up a new variable, and that's an individual's memory. Like, do you have a visual memory or an auditory memory, that kind of thing? Maybe your whatever part of the brain that remembers faces isn't as tuned in, or I don't know the right word, as someone else.
Maybe.
Yeah. So do you believe in ghosts yet?
No.
Can you at least entertain the possibility that it's possible?
Oh yeah, I can entertain the possibility that, lots of things are possible. It's like
Mission accomplished, everyone.
I just go with, is it probable?
Oh my God. Possible, probable, possible, probable.
Well, it's a big difference. It's
those stupid skeptic words. In all honesty, like, of course I'm skeptical, but I think I'm just closer to accepting it than you are, I guess. I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, but I don't know. I don't have those explanations, those rationalizations that you have for the experiences that I experienced and what my family has experienced.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's kind of funny that we've ended up here. This is sometimes something I land on when I'm talking to religious people, is I can't really refute your anecdotal evidence or stuff that in your mind is evidence, or that you believe is, paranormal, supernatural, or, divine intervention. Mm-hmm. I can't really refute subjective experiences because I didn't have them. And, I kind of wondered if we'd end up on that same point, of like, well, that's your subjective experience. I can't really refute that.
I mean, yeah, of course.
Like, I can't prove to a religious person that, God didn't answer their prayers. I can't prove that.
Right. I mean, there's that whole cliche. I mean, it's pretty much become a cliche where someone says, I never believed in ghosts until I had my own experience. I mean, the same can be said about UFOs too, but still, it's still a thing that you're more inclined to not believe in something for good reason. I mean, it's definitely good reason, but you're not inclined to believe something unless you've experienced it. And your experience is, you have the rationalization that it could have been your hair touching your face. It could have been, what'd you say, like a squirrel walking on the roof.
Yeah, because I mean, the footsteps were extremely light. I'm not talking. We're not talking like I heard like heavy, slow human footsteps. We're talking like I heard like really light footsteps.
Yeah, and plus you had just been telling ghost stories, so your mind is already in that area.
And when I told that story to one person, they were like, "Yeah, but you said the room was cold," and I was like, "I also told you I was standing in front of a refrigerator for an extended period of time."
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. Like, I don't know about the cold thing. I don't remember experiencing like cold in the Claremont house. It was just a weird vibe, like just a weird feeling. Not even necessarily scary, but just a weird, uneasy feeling.
Well, and there is the. You got to remember, if you've ever seen an episode of Ghost Adventures, it gets cold in there. That's one of their favorite things to do. It is so cold in this room, guys. You have no idea. I wish you could see it or feel it for yourself. It is so cold here.
Probably because you're in New England in the fall.
Yeah, okay. In short fucking sleeves.
Hey, man, he needs his affliction baby-size shirts.
I never believe... Dude, I saw a fucking parody video of that and it made me laugh my ass off.
Ghost Facers!
That's funny, too. That wasn't what I was thinking of, but...
That's a Supernatural reference. Anyway.
Oh, God, those fuckers, man.
Oh, which ones? Ghost Adventures?
Both.
Oh, both. Dude, yeah, I was actually super into that show.
I mean, I watched it because it was entertaining, but at the same time, I'm like, what's with this dude who's scared of his own shadow doing this shit?
Oh, Aaron, right? The
one
guy?
the one who's always like, oh, what was that?
Dude. Yeah, I don't know. They could be acting.
I know you're down here. Why don't you talk to me?
I mean, more power to them, even if it was for a show, and if, you know, my opinion, it's not real, I'm just doing a show, I would still have a pretty hard time going into a dark, old, falling apart place and screaming into the darkness. I'd be afraid something would answer. I've seen too many horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, of course, you know, if you ever did it and something did answer, you would immediately shit your pants.
Could you run? Could you run, or would you just be petrified? Just, you couldn't move?
Oh, I could run. Like, if I run into something that I don't think exists and is supposed to be terrifying, I'm running. I'm out of there.
Oh. If you don't think it exists, some people would say they would run towards it to see, you know, who's the man behind the mask type of thing.
Well, there's some part of that, but it would depend on the situation. How fucking dark is it? You know, am I armed? That's another thing. I would be armed. I would not be like, because I mean, there could be some creepy hobos that like rape people and take their money in those places. You should have a gun. You should always have a gun when you're looking for ghosts.
Salt bullets.
Yeah, definitely salt bullets. And real bullets in case it's a person.
All right. Well,
you alternate your salt bullets and real bullets in your clip. That's how you do it.
Okay.
Prepared for anything.
Everyone learn from John.
I mean,
well, I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about, and I think I got you to at least consider the possibility, but we didn't convince him, everyone.
Well, I would never say that, you know, something is completely impossible unless, you know, you could prove that it's impossible. But as with most things that are, you know, supernatural, paranormal, that kind of thing, the burden of proof is on the people that claim the outlandish thing exists.
That's true. I don't know if we'll ever prove it one way or another, but it's still a fun topic to discuss, especially on, you know, especially this time of year. You know, Halloween's just around the corner now. Well, you ready to wrap this bitch up?
Always.
All right.
Oh, we weren't talking about my wang. Sorry.
Oh my God. Well, is there anything you would like to tell these beautiful people before we go?
Ghosts and demons aren't real.
Ghosts are real.
No, they're not.
All right, well, thank you everyone for listening. Again, if you want to send us a question for the Ask Anything segment, send it to our email, which is theoryofanythingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send it to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/theoryofanythingpodcast. And also we have a Twitter, which is @ToA podcast. You can send all of that stuff there. If you have any questions, whether it's silly, serious, whatever the fuck, just send it in and we'll talk about it on air.
And don't forget to send nudes.
Send John nudes. Don't send me anything. Anyway, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Later.
Bye.